Hi everybody, and welcome back to the UC Center for Field Studies. I'm your host, Alex Golden, and today we'll be doing another episode of E-Ventures in Nature. Today we'll be talking about medicinal plants. All of them are native to Southwest Ohio, so we'll be talking about a little bit about how they grow, where you can find them, and what they were used for. So the first medicinal plant we'll talk about today is Echinacea. This is this beautiful purple flower here. This is a member of the sunflower family, so it's pretty easy to recognize. And medicinally, this plant has been used for centuries as a treatment for cold and flu symptoms. So how they would use this plant is they would take the leaves, they would dry them, and then they would grind them up to make a tea with them. So just like you might drink some hot tea when you're feeling sick, they would make this Echinacea tea, and they would drink that when they were feeling sick, and if everything goes right, then you start feeling better. So this is a plant that we feel like it's important for you guys to know how to recognize as well. It does have an impact on your health, however, this is a negative one. This is pokeweed, and it's considered poisonous. The young leaves can be used to make a salad, however, once the leaves get older and more mature, like these, they become toxic. The flowers as well, which you can see aren't quite developed here, will turn into these lovely purple berries. Those berries look delicious, but are actually quite poisonous, so it's very good to avoid them. As you can see, it's a rather large plant, so between that and its very distinctive berries, it's easy to recognize when you see it, and hopefully then you can avoid it. So this plant is called Spicebush. It's also known as fever bush. And now if you've been following along, you might get a little hint from that name what this plant was used for medicinally. You would use the crushed up leaves to make a tea, and it would be used to treat fevers. So if you were feeling warm and you were running a fever with your colds, you could make a tea out of the leaves of this plant and try and treat that and bring your fever down to normal levels. In addition, this is a really easy plant to recognize when you're out and about. It has these very nice, simple alternate leaves, which when you crush them up, and do try this at home, if you crush these leaves up, they smell so good. Very spicy and very aromatic, so they're really easy to recognize if you find one of these out on your walk. This is a dogwood, which you might recognize as a really popular landscape plant for us. However, it was also used medicinally by Native Americans and by early settlers to treat malaria. So they could take the leaves and they would make a tea out of it, which could be used to treat malaria, which is a disease that is carried and given to you by mosquito bites. So what we have here is the common juniper. This is a conifer, so it's more closely related to a pine tree than a blueberry. However, you can see these little berries on here. Well, they look like berries, but they're actually cones. And the Native Americans would sometimes eat these, but the real medicinal use of this plant was in its leaves, which contain lots of vitamin C. So they could make a tea out of these, which would be used to treat vitamin C deficiency and diseases like scurvy. This is the highbush cranberry, and aside from being familiar with cranberries as a fruit that we all enjoy at the Thanksgiving table in our cranberry sauce, Native Americans would use the inner bark of this plant as a treatment for stomach cramps. So this plant plant is called Ninebark. It was used by both Native Americans and European settlers as a treatment for a couple of different things. So they would make a salve out of the roots. They would boil them and mash them up to make like a paste, and they would use that as a burn treatment. And they would also take the inner bark and make they would put it in water and use that as a treatment for eye infections. Now don't try either of those at home, and make sure that you're using, the stuff that you can buy at Walgreens to treat your eye infections and your burns. But this is something that that native people to this area would use as a medicinal plant. So these that we have here are Scarlet Runnerbeans. They were a plant that was a domesticated species used by local Native Americans as a food supply. These, you can see here, we have them planted by a trellis. As they mature, they're going to grow up as vines on this trellis. And how the Native Americans would have planted them was alongside their corn crop. Corn matures faster than the beans, so what that meant is the beans could use the corn stalks as their trellis while they grew. And the corn didn't get the short end of the stick in this relationship because the beans have nitrogen-fixing bacteria in their roots. And what that does is put nitrogen into the soil. So just like when you put fertilizer on your garden at home, the beans would fertilize the soil that the corn was growing in so that the corn could grow bigger and stronger and have better fruit. Thank you for coming out with us today on a little walk around the field station to look at all of our medicinal plants. If you're interested in engaging with us further, try this at home. Look up your favorite plant, your favorite fruit, your favorite vegetable, and see if it was used for anything medicinally by Native Americans or the native peoples of wherever that plant originated from. If you find anything interesting, feel free to share it with us on all of the field station's social media.